Hello, everyone, and welcome to the United Happy Hour podcast. This is Jazz, and on today's episode, I'm joined by one of my friends who I used to run in Florida. She does triathlon, she runs marathon, and then she does ultra marathons. So, let me introduce you to Elena. Hey, Elena, how are you?
Hi, Ash. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's nice to meet you and talk to you after so long. It's been ages since we ran in Orlando, so it's so nice to catch up, and then it felt really good. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me. It is great to talk to you. It's been a few years. It's good to reconnect.
As we start, can you just give a little bit of brief introduction, because I know you very well, but our guests will not probably know a lot about you. So can you just give a little bit of introduction about you, and then we'll go with your running journey after that.
Sounds good. So I am Elena. I'm a triathlete and a runner. I'm not sure which one I would say first. I'm just both hybrid, I guess. I'm a mom. I have two kids that are adults now. So one that's turning 19 this month, and the other one just turned 22. Those are my top priorities right now. Is even though they're adults, I still in the throes of parenting them and making sure that they make good decisions, which they do for the most part. Everything's good there. And I am a nurse practitioner for my job. So I work in a pediatric office. I see kids up until they're about 19. And then I just got a promotion through work, and I do still see patients one day a week, but I also manage about 80 other nurse practitioners and physician assistants in our medical group. So I stay really busy with work. Some days I have normal 8-hour days, and other days I have 11, 12-hour days. I kind of dip my toes into that corporate side of things and the administrative side. So that's pretty much me. And I'm a fur baby mom. I have a zoo at my house. I have 3 dogs and 2 cats also in the mix. So we have a full house.
I remember Koda. But before that, congratulations on the promotion, and it's nice to hear that. I remember Koda sitting on Jamie. That's the one thing I'll never forget, because Jamie was terrified. The first time I think we ran together, right, in the Orlando Winter Park, and then it was so funny.
Yes, it was when we went to the Christmas lights. We were looking at the lights and stuff that night. Yes, Dakota is still hanging around. He's about 8 years old now, maybe going on 9. He doesn't run anymore, though. He's retired from running. So.
Okay, yeah, I remember that time we ran, and then he kept sitting on Jamie, and then Jamie was like, "Oh God, what is this dog doing? He's so sweet, that's so funny."
Coda is overly excited and overly friendly every time he meets another dog, so he does have the respect. But he means well.
Yeah, I know. That was just funny, because I just remember that Jamie is super excited too, but then he was just like, "Oh God, okay, what is happening to me? I'm not the popular one anymore."
I know, and Coda is 70 pounds, so he's so much bigger than Jamie was. I'm sure that's super scary.
Yeah, that is one incident I remember all the time. It's we were running in the Winter Park and the Winter Garden. Yeah, it was nice.
Winter Garden.
Can you let us know about the running journey? When I first met you, you were already running marathons, and I was just getting started. Oh my God, this woman is a badass. So that's what I always thought. How did you got into it, and when did you decide to take on the marathons?
Yeah, so I actually started running when I was little, in school. We, back in the time when I was in elementary school, we still had PE class every day. And one of my favorite parts of the day was running in school. So there was another girl, I can't remember her last name, but some part of me still wants to look her up and find her today and see if she's still a runner. Her name was Dina, and I can't remember the last name, but we would race each other to finish first in our, we had a dirt track around our school, kind of in the back, and it was about a half mile. And every single day we raced each other. And sometimes she would win and sometimes I would win. And we were always the first 2 girls. And it just, I guess that's what made me really love it. Probably the friendship and the camaraderie that we made with each other, but also the competitive nature of it. And I stayed running, every chance I could, at my grandma's house in the backyard. I made myself a little track that I could run on. And as I got older, I would run in my neighborhood, probably around 12 or 13. I would just go for a run. And back then we didn't measure distance or anything. I didn't have a fancy watch or a phone to carry. So I would just run through the neighborhood. And then I ran my first marathon for my 30th birthday, actually. Prior to that, I did like 5Ks and 10Ks from about the time I was like 20 until that time. So I kind of gradually got into the longer distances.
Wow, you did your first marathon at 30. Dang. I did mine when I was 38, I think.
Oh, that's great. Oh my gosh, yeah. So I did the Disney marathon. That was my first one for my 30th birthday because, I don't know, I lived in Orlando and that was a big thing, and they make you feel special, right? So like you get the special button to wear in the parks, like it's my birthday and I did a marathon, and they just made a big deal out of it. So yeah, I think that aligned really well with turning 30 for me.
I think they still do. It's one of the biggest, probably one of the challenge one, dopey challenge one is still probably one of the biggest races that everybody goes to and wants to do. So, and everything is nice, like the hotel and everything, and all the parks. You run through the park, so it's really nice in Orlando. I miss that place.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It's nice area to live in.
There's so much to do.
Yeah, you just need money.
Yes, that's so true.
You can go anywhere. So, can you tell us about that Disney marathon? The first time you ever did it? I've never done the Disney marathon. So, how was the atmosphere around there? And were there anything that you learned from that race?
Yes. How much time do we have? I could talk a lot about that one. So I can summarize it.
Okay.
So it went. I finished. But, like the vibe there was super fun. They always start really early, and I think now they start much earlier. If I remember, it started at like 7 a.m., normal start time back then, maybe 6 a.m. I was very underprepared for the distance of a marathon. Back then, I never even thought twice about, I didn't have a coach. I just ran, and I could just run and hop into like a local 5K or 10K and do pretty good and not really have to do extra above and beyond to prepare for it. So I guess I had a different mindset, like, oh, I can just run this marathon and it'll be fine. I followed some like random training plan on the internet, and I was very slow. As the miles ticked by, my pace slowed more and more and more because I didn't really put in the time I should have on the long runs, and it showed. It definitely showed. So I learned a big lesson that you actually have to train, and you can't skip your long runs. They're built in there for a reason. I think I was really inspired too, though. Not only did I learn about myself, but I learned about other people, and I learned about like my mindset of a runner. Like physical appearance means nothing when you're a runner. You can look super fit and you can not finish a race just because you didn't prepare. Like people all ages and sizes passed by me, and I was struggling. Like I remember at one point I literally wished I could crawl my way to the finish. I was having like knee pain, and just everything was falling apart at that like mile 22 probably. I was close to the finish, but still so far. I just kept thinking, like, look at all these people around me. They're having fun, and I'm like dying over here. And I think I look more in shape than them, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's really, the marathon, I feel like, shows whether you have put in the work or not. And that the truth comes out, right?
Yes. For me, it just the mental toughness, that running marathon is not easy. And then like we all struggle. And my first marathon, I did only 5 weeks of training to run the Berlin Marathon, and I was not prepared at all. And after 30 kilometers, and my the ITB started hurting. And then I think it just shows you like the mental toughness that it builds when you are running. I don't think a lot of us will quit. The mindset of it, that no matter how tough the situation is, that I don't think we give up. A lot of people will always want to finish the race that you are in. So
so true.
But I understand the pain because I was also saying the same thing after 30 kilometers. Why did I decide to do it?
Yeah, and it's like then you're regretting, like, why didn't I do those long runs? Why did I skip this training? Why did why did I do it this way? Starts to come in your head, the self doubt creeps in.
Yes, it's so many questions. Why and why did
Hmm.
I run marathon too at one point, and then after that it was okay. Let me see for another one. Where can I sign up? Okay, so I know you have run multiple marathons and then triathlons. How do you approach to training and racing? Has it changed over time?
Yes, it's very different now. I learned that lesson, and the lesson stuck with me. So I take it a lot more serious now. I enjoy training, which is a good thing because it does take a lot of time, away from just free time otherwise. But I do follow a training plan. I actually recently worked with a coach, really tried to follow that experience, valuing what other people have to tell you. Sometimes even coaches have coaches, right? So like just the nutrition, the recovery, the rest, the hydration, all of those things, like they all matter. And even like sleep quality matters when you're training. So all of these things that I didn't even think of when I first ran a marathon, now I really pay attention to not only the physical training, but those other factors too. So I'm like the person who's always bringing my hydration with me and bringing electrolytes to work and packing all this healthy food at work. And my coworkers look at me like, what are you doing? We're going to have like chips and stuff and candy bars and come to the break room and have this soda. And I'm like, no, no, no. So I do try to take it more holistically now, and I try to get in at least 4, sometimes 5 runs a week, depending on what I'm training for.
That was probably going to be the next question. So, what does your typical training blocks look like? So, when you're preparing for a marathon, how do you balance the speed work, long run, and recovery?
I
Strengthening?
try. Like it depends. I also do bike and I swim just for triathlon, but to maintain that even year round. So I try to go to the gym also and do some weightlifting, strength training. It's a lot. I mean, also to have a full time job and fit out all in. Some weeks are different, so it varies. But I try for at least 4 runs every week. If I can do a 5th one, that makes me happy. At least one bike if I'm just marathon training, at least one swim if I'm marathon training. And then I try to do the strength twice a week would be ideal during a training block. Because I think that really has helped me prevent injuries. I followed various training plans in the past, and one of the highest mileage ones had me running close to 60 miles a week. And for my body, it was a little bit too much. My body really likes the cross training of like subbing out some of the running miles for the cross training and including the strength. So like about 30 to 40 miles a week is a good spot for me for marathon training. I try to do like speed work maybe on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then one of the weekend days would be my long run. Then, after a long run, that's it. Like I don't do anything else that day. Like, if it's like 8 miles, that's fine. I can function. But when you're hitting the higher numbers like 16 and 18, I mean, that's it. Like I go run, I get some coffee, I come home and I lay around all day. I just relax after that.
I know that feeling after the long race. Today I did 17, and this is the first long run kind of after Berlin Marathon, and I'm like, God, okay, I'm not moving today. So I'm just been literally doing nothing, and I took a nap, and so it was nice today. It was.
Naps are amazing, except I'm a terrible napper. I try, but I think I just drink too much caffeine, and then I can't. I don't know, the cortisol and everything from like doing the run, and then I just can't relax. But I will lay in bed with the lights off and pull the blackout curtains closed, and so it's nice and dark and cool, and I get into that relaxation mode where my body thinks I'm sleeping, right?
Yes.
And then try to get massages.
Oh yeah, I missed that.
Getting massages, yeah.
I used to do that a lot in.
That's so good.
Yes, I used to do that a lot in Orlando, in Texas, but here not so much. But the only thing that improved after moving to Berlin was napping. I learned to nap like how the Europeans do in the afternoon. So a lot of people nap. So I kind of learned that like 20-30 minutes, even
Oh
though
wow.
when I was running in the morning, and then that 20-30 minutes of power nap would really help me push through the rest of the day, because when you're training for a marathon, then it's draining, because you run 15 16 kilometers in the morning. In Monday morning I was to run that much, and I was like so much exhausted all the time. Nap is awesome. I love it.
I know. I'm jealous of people that can nap really well because it just does not come easy for me. Even when I was a kid, I was never a good napper. So, yes, that's something I'd like to work on, actually.
I think I didn't know that I could nap once I moved to Berlin. We slightly talked about your nutrition plan. Right now, do you have a specific plan that you use, or what is your plan when you're training and stuff like that?
Carbs, 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 right? Carbs and coffee. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I do increase the carbs a little bit when I'm training for longer distance. But like in actual training, like when I'm out running, you mean on those long runs?
In general, during a training, so let's say you are doing a marathon training or something like that, then like how does it look?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I practice the nutrition a lot on the long run for the race. So, two products that I found that work really well for me was the Morton gels that are non-caffeinated, and then the Honey Stinger caffeinated gels. So I kind of alternate those, every 4 miles, let's say, throughout the duration of a race or a long run, and a lot of electrolytes. I'm a very salty sweater, I guess, so I need a lot more electrolytes than I think I need. So I think previous to the last couple years, I was not taking electrolytes enough, and that was causing issues for me, and even causing fatigue and stuff when I'm not running, just everyday tiredness. But I try to holistically, even when I'm not running, day to day, when I am training for something big, I try to avoid alcohol, which is hard because I like wine. I like a cocktail here and there. I don't drink alcohol every day, but if it's a work event or a social event, that temptation is there, and that's just really tough. But for me, it's made a huge difference. I just don't feel as good when I drink alcohol, so that's something that I've had to kind of chill out on a little bit whenever I'm training. And I think I just try to eat clean as much as possible. A lot of fruits and vegetables, and I incorporate turmeric and ginger into either juices or a turmeric paste that I make. And I think that helps a lot with inflammation. And yeah, just try to avoid the junk, but it's out there and it's always tempting, especially here in the US. It's just everywhere.
Just not just US here too. Junk food is everywhere. So pizza here and there, and then burger here and there. One of the biggest takeaway from me with alcohol is the difference I found was that whenever I was training for a marathon, and then if I drank an alcohol, then my recovery would be so bad. For the last Berlin Marathon, I didn't drink at all. I stopped completely, and that really helped me to get recovery faster than when I was drinking alcohol. Now I drink here and there, but usually that's the difference I found was whenever I drank beer, and I'm very light drinker, so one beer would probably get tipsy. I am so big into the stat of the stress that you see on the Garmin watch. So whenever I drink alcohol, then my stress is over the roof at night. That's why.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you pay attention to that, but now I usually take a look at my stress whenever I'm sleeping at night. So that kind of gives me indication how much better if I slept or not. And usually when I drink alcohol, then it's really really higher than other days that I didn't drink.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. My Garmin tells me that, bad sleep score, because you're restless or not in a deep sleep or whatever, all the things that it tells you. And I agree, the alcohol does affect my sleep. So, yeah. And even though it might not feel like it, to see that, and you're oh, okay, this is the missing piece of the puzzle. So, yeah, I've had to back off on that a little bit too.
I need to get away from it. Good thing here is you can find that non-alcoholic beverages that taste exactly same as beer but without alcohol. So there is alternative for beer here. Okay, so let's say when you are training for a marathon, then sometimes, like you said, you found out that your body cannot do more than 40. So there's a certain threshold and something like that. When you that limit, when you figure out that your body was not like cannot do over 40 or something like that, did you ever had to adjust your training because of injury and burnout?
Yeah. Adjusting the training, yes. Yes, unfortunately, I feel like that happens more often than not in reality. I think we all start out with a plan, whether it's because a coach gives it to us or we create our own plan or whatever. And yes, I've definitely had to adjust, like reducing some of the distances or slowing the paces down, maybe doing some cross training. So like an extra bike session in a week instead of a run, and then resting more. And a couple of years ago, this will be 2 years, I actually had to go to physical therapy because I had a back injury that was not related at all to running or the gym. The gym made it worse because I went in and lifted heavy weights when I already had something going on from moving some like furniture on my back patio. So I had tweaked something and I had such bad sciatica nerve pain down my leg that I could hardly walk. So like I would be walking and my foot wouldn't pick up. And so I was like, what is this? What's going on? Like I didn't connect it to my back at first because the back pain happened and then it went away. But then it was like a few weeks later and I'm limping. So I would do some runs. My foot would drop. Like I would almost trip and fall. I was like, this is freaking me out. Yeah, it was really scary and embarrassing, right? Because I'm like stumbling when I'm running on a trail and there's other people around me and they're like, what's wrong with her? So I waited, of course, just like all people do. We don't want to go to the doctor. We don't want to, especially if we work in healthcare, we don't like to be the patient. So I waited and tried to work through it on my own and got to where I really couldn't even run without pain or without fear, like massive fear of tripping and falling. I couldn't ride a bicycle because I couldn't pedal. My right side, like my knee wouldn't flex enough to pedal the bicycle. And I was like, okay, I need to be seen by somebody. So I was really scared that I was going to be told I needed like knee surgery or something. So I went in and I got physical therapy. They said that everything was from my back, from the injury that I had. And there was like a nerve compression. And so I was super relieved because I was walking in there thinking that I would be told no running ever again, knee surgery, and this is it. They helped me work through the injury. They gave me exercises that I did there once a week, and then I did it at home. I was very diligent in doing it because the pain and the symptoms were so bad and so potentially devastating that I knew I had to take it seriously. So I did it for about 4 months and I was able to run again. I'm not saying it's gone 100% because there are days where like I will feel a little bit of something in my back and down my leg and I'm like, oh. So I go back and I do the exercise because like most things, it's one of those, anytime you do physical therapy, you have to maintain. You can't completely stop and expect for the problem to be forever gone. So, but they teach you the tools to like work through that on your own for maintenance for the long term. So it's good, but that was a lot to manage, trying to fit in physical therapy and working and trying to still train. So I relied a lot on swimming during that time, which would be, non-weight bearing and good cardio, keep that up. But that was tough. And then the comeback was really hard because when you don't run for like 4 months or so, your first run back is it feels like you're starting all over. It's tough.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. Because I didn't run a lot after the Berlin Marathon. I only ran like here and there, and then when I started running back and I was like out of breath and I was like, oh my god, and my heart rate is so high and I feel fat and it's just like, oh god, like how did I even run before? It was, yeah, I know that feeling.
Yes. Oh, you just described everything that I experienced. Yes, it's so hard. And so I think like it really opened my eyes to like, how you meet another adult and they're like, oh, I'm not a runner. I could never do that because it's hard. It actually, like I started running when I was a kid. So I never experienced that feeling of like, oh, this is terrible. And I feel like I can't breathe. And like when you're a kid, you don't think about it. You just go and you just do, But as an adult, I was like, wow, this is why people are so hesitant to start running because the first couple months it is hard. It is so hard.
It is hard. And then you run, you can't run, and then you breathe heavy, and then everything hurts, and then you try to do strength training, and then your glutes are hurting for 3 days. Your calves is hurting for 3 days.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the worst when you have to start. And also, did you ever feel the burnout when you were training for a marathon or any event or anything that you were doing where you had to feel like, okay, I need to stop or I need to take a break?
I don't really think I've ever felt true burnout with training. For me, like, I really enjoy seeing my body do harder things week to week. So when you're in a training plan and, you're at 14 miles and then 16 and then 18 and then you get to that big 20 miler, and I just think that's really exciting. And I will say I have some really good running friends that I've made in the community, and that probably helps me keep being burnt out. We don't always run together, but we kind of have like a standing Saturday or Sunday morning coffee date after our long run. So we're kind of each doing our own thing, but then they hold you accountable and give you something to look forward to. So I wouldn't say burnt out. I mean, there were a couple times, but I was like, oh, I have to do this run tomorrow. Like, it's Friday night. I can't do what I want. I have to go to bed early. I have to eat a certain way. I can't have that glass of wine. Like, I have to get up so early before it gets hot in the summer and so there were hard days, but I wouldn't really call it burnout, I think. I just really enjoy training. For me, it's a stress reliever, and I think I'm more prone to burnout of like work and other life stress when I don't train. So I'm kind of weird like that, but that's what works for me.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. I remember when I moved to Phoenix during the summer, we had to run at 4:30 a.m. and it used to be 93 degrees. So
Yes, it's so hot. Summer is so hard.
yeah, and then it's just like you cannot do anything Friday night, like you said. It's just like, oh God, I have to wake up at 4:30 tomorrow morning. It's hard. What's your biggest mistake that you have made during a marathon training?
Besides skipping those long runs, I think just the comparison game, right? Like we see everybody doing their great paces on like Instagram and Strava, and we only see the things that people want us to see, right? So they're not really, maybe on Strava you might see good and bad, but on Instagram or any of those other things, TikTok, you're only seeing like people's wonderful, great experiences. So I think comparing to others is really tough because that's human nature, and you can't not see those things, but you have to run your own race. You have to do your own training, and constantly worrying about what other people do. I think that really has caused at times some issues for me.
Yeah.
I like Strava though. I think it's a fun app.
I know what you mean. I was just doing that today. I did my 17 kilometer and I was so happy, but then I saw one of my friends did a marathon and I was like, oh God, she's doing a marathon. She did a marathon and I'm at 17 kilometer now, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's tough, I think the culture is now that you have to do something extraordinary to be recognized or to be a runner, like either you have to run a very fast run, like under 3 hours to be at least called a runner, and then you have to run more than 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers, ultra marathon, and more something like that. So there is nothing in between now. You have to be really extraordinary these days to be called an athlete or called as a runner. It's getting very competitive everywhere.
It is, but just like you looked at the friend that did the marathon, and you're like, oh, I only did 17. There's somebody else that only did 5K, and they're looking at yours going, wow, he did 17. So like it's all relative. But you're right. It's just so competitive. I think we just, as humans, we just compare ourselves constantly. And, maybe some people have that mastered, but I struggle with that. I always want to be faster and do more. And I kind of have that never enough mentality. But sometimes just being out there and just doing it, that is enough. Whatever you can do is better than doing nothing, right?
That was one of my, for the Berlin, I really wanted to do sub 4, and just 1 week before then I started getting a quad injury because I was pushing myself so much. Like usually that's a taper where you need to really chill and do things. I was running super fast and then I got injured, and like you said, we all want to run faster and we want to get that time lesser again, because running a marathon is not enough anymore. Like we have to do at as fast as we can, and like soft 4, soft 3. It's addiction, that is what it is. If it is a race day, then what is your routine like?
Well, I will say I'm not a morning person. It's very difficult for me to get up early. I've always been that way my whole life. And you would think, oh, well, you have a special event that you're waking up for. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make it any easier for me. So I have to set like 4 different alarms to make sure I wake up on time, because I have been known to sleep over. There's been a couple races that I've literally gotten there with just like 2 or 3 minutes to spare, and that's not a good feeling. So I've stressed out myself and others that I've been racing with by doing that. So I do try to make sure I get up at least 2 hours before, depending like if I have to drive somewhere to the race. But if it's a local race, I'm, up at least 2, maybe 2.5 hours before the race. I always have coffee every day. That's like a deal breaker. If I can't have coffee, I'm not leaving the house.
Yes, me too.
So important. Yes, it's crucial. And then I usually take a hot shower just to kind of wake up and do a little bit of like foam rolling and mobility work, and have a breakfast, like something light like banana or oats or something like that. So all of that takes me about like 45 minutes, I would say. And then I head out to the event. I try to get there like 45 minutes to an hour before the start so that I can do a little bit more mobility. And I am one of those people that does a little bit of a warm up. Now, if it's a marathon, I'm not warming up before that. There's plenty of time to warm up. But if it's, a 5K, I'll run for like 10 or 15 minutes just to kind of shake out a little bit. Yeah, so I try to minimize stress just because I know that the mornings can be stressful for me. But I like evening races. Those are like few and far between. And I don't think there's any marathon that's an evening marathon that I've ever heard of. But yeah, marathons start pretty early to me. Like my ideal start time would be like 10 a.m., but then it would be so hot that it's over, It's over before it starts.
I know what you mean. It's the same thing for me. But I found few races here in Berlin that happens in the evening. I think there are a lot of them around Europe, especially, and in Phoenix too. During the summer, I think there are few races that happens in the evening.
We have a sunset one here in Claremont it was a triathlon and a 5K, but it was great. It started at 6:30 in the evening, so that was one of my favorite races. And I heard that the Las Vegas, what was the one they just had, the rock and roll, I think?
Yeah, rock and roll.
They're in the evening. But yeah, evenings are much better for me. Like, I ran Chicago this past fall. I almost didn't make it to my start corral, but I will say it wasn't 100% my fault. My hotel was on the course of the marathon, and it was in the first like 2 or 3 miles of the race. So, I had plenty of time to spare. I had out onto the street, the sidewalk, and there's spectators lined up. And then I realized I can't cross in front of these runners. Like, these runners are like the A corral. These are the elite people. They are pushing a 5-something minute pace. And I can't cross. There were so many of them. I'm like, I can't cross the road. Like, there's no break in traffic flow of runners that is safe. And I was like, what? So I asked a police officer that was there. I was like, hey, where can I cross? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Go ask the volunteer. I asked the volunteer, and she's like, I have no idea. I'm just manning the water table. And I'm like, no. So I'm like, how am I going to get? So I start walking. Like, maybe I can walk. I don't know what I was thinking. I was panicking. I was like, maybe I can walk somehow, like, far enough down, and then I can cross over. But then finally, a brilliant person, I don't remember if it was like a volunteer or a police officer, they were telling someone else, and I overheard Subway. They have like the underground, subway system.
Yeah.
And the lady was like, yeah, just go downstairs and cross over underneath and come up on the other side. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, why didn't I know that like 15 or 20 minutes ago? I'm not a city person. So like, I did not think of that. So yeah, I did that, and I got across and into my start corral with like maybe 5 minutes to spare. And I was like, what if I miss my race because of something silly like that? And so then it goes back to like, just be early. Just go earlier than you think you should have to go,
I know that
that would have been so embarrassing.
it's usually chaos when you go to the Berlin Marathon because there are literally so many people. So usually when you go to the line, then people usually sneak in from the forest because it's like you go between the forest to your garden. So usually that's where everybody goes in, and unless you go really early, it's very hard to go to your car. But it never happens to Berlin
Yes,
Marathon. Yeah, it
like
never.
whatever you think you should be there, just be earlier, right?
Yes,
More earlier than you like. It's just yeah, because there's so many people, and I don't think I was prepared for that. It was such a great race experience, but yeah, you're right. There's so many people racing, and then all the people racing have at least one or more spectators. So,
yeah,
and there's like community people from the neighborhoods are out, and the volunteers, and the traffic control with the officers. Like, there's just so much activity going on. Yeah, it's a lot.
I think I ran 2 times Berlin Marathon, and it's the both time I didn't make to my corral in time, so I always did the next one available. So it's hard because there is no way you can get in time because there is so many people. 80,000, I think it was last time, right? So that was only running people, and on top of that, there are so many spectators, and so many places are closed off during the day. So it's hectic.
Wow.
It's hectic
Yeah.
here. Since we're talking about the race to race strategies, we talked about the routine that you go from the morning to do. But when you are doing the actual race, do you have any specific pacing strategy that you use, or you just go based on how you feel during that day?
I would say I go mostly by feel, but the one pacing strategy that I do use, and it's hard, is to not go out too fast. I always go out too fast on the first mile or two. I think everyone is guilty of that for the most part. And then I'm like, whoa, 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 I can't sustain this. Slow down, relax. So then I kind of know that. So now I'm trying to work on that, and it's definitely been a lot better. But then, it's just by feel after that. Like, if it's a good day, it'll be a good day. And if it's not your day, then just do what feels good, do what you can.
I know I was guilty of that too in the 5 marathon, and I was running so fast I didn't realize. So I usually have a pace in mind, so I usually follow a particular speed for me that I want to finish a goal that I'm trying to achieve. So, but usually that goes the window after 30 kilometers anyway. So
At least you hang on to it that long, though. You try, right?
yeah. Until the Berlin Marathon, I did 30 kilometers. I was really good, and after that, the last like 10 kilometers, 12 kilometers took me like 1 hour 30 minutes or something like that to finish. So it's always difficult. I think 30 is the one that we usually always can run, and after that, it's like really really hard. It's like, oh God, when will it finish? I just want to go home. I want coffee. I
Yeah.
want food.
Oh, so there's just one of the races that I did. It was down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I will never forget. I was at like mile 21, I think, and this has been a few years back. So people still carried cash very commonly, and so I did tuck some money into my shorts or whatever, just in case something came up, like during the race. So like I was struggling, and I was hungry, and I was underfueled, and it was hot that day. It was like one of the hottest years that the race occurred because it's in February, so it's supposed to be cooler, but that was like record-breaking heat. And I passed the McDonald's, and I don't even like McDonald's, but I was like, wow, I have $10 in my pocket. I could go get a cheeseburger and a Coke, and I could get like a bus or a cab to drive me back to my car. Like, I'm done. But then I was like, well, no, you're not. You told everyone you're doing this. My mom was babysitting my kids at the time, and I was like, I can't do that to my mom. It's like, it was Valentine's Day weekend, so unexpected. Like, when I signed up, I didn't think about that. My mom has sacrificed her weekend to spend it babysitting, and I could not just bail on this race. Plus, I'd go back to work, and everyone would hear the story of how I quit for a cheeseburger. I was like, no, I can't do that. But it was tempting.
That would be a fun story to say. You know what? I was running the marathon, but I saw McDonald's, and that was it. I had to stop.
And like, I don't even like McDonald's. So like, that's how desperate I was.
I know that feeling.
Oh.
I know that feeling. I've been there so many times. Every time I don't do a marathon, I just feel that after, especially at the end, I just feel like, why I am doing this. Every time I do long run too, I see people drinking coffee, and I'm like, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I running so early? And people are having coffee, nice walk, and why? What is wrong with me? Why can't I do that? So,
Yes. Right?
yeah, it's all the
That's a common thought, I think.
yes. I think that is the common thought. with all of us. It's just like, why? And most of the time, my feeling is that I want coffee, I want nice bed, I want to go home when I'm training. So
Oh, yes. All the things.
we just briefly talked about the 30 kilometers, especially that is like one of the mental blockage for me because all the races, a marathon I did, I had issues right after it. How do you handle that tough moment after 30, 35 kilometers when you are running a marathon and it's going perfectly well and all of a sudden it's just like you hit that block, And so how do you push through that challenge?
Is it fair to say that I cry? No. I have. There have been some races that I've had a few tears. Yeah. But no, I think like just preparing, knowing that it's going to get hard is the first step, is like mentally preparing for that, making sure that you have adequate fuel and hydration along the way. And I've definitely said some prayers, I have definitely had some conversations with God during those times. And I think having a mantra helps too. Just something you can rely on, self-talk your way through it, because it's hard, but it's hard for everyone. I don't think anybody will tell you that. Even the fast people that are up in the top 10%, they're not going to tell you that it's easy. I think just remembering that and knowing that we're all suffering out there, but I guess we're all crazy enough to suffer and forget it. I don't know. And then we sign up again,
Yes. Exactly. I think crying part I agree because first marathon I wanted to cry actually because 5 weeks training, right? So I've never done that, and after 30 it's like everything was hurting. Even the step I took was hurting and I was like, oh my god, I want to cry. It just, can I just cry and go like, why did I do this? So you're right, everybody it's the same problem because either you are that top 10% runner because your goal is different, so you have to push through and you will struggle in different ways than the rest of us, like who don't run that fast but we tend to struggle in our own ways, like all of us, whoever is running like 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. So we all, I think, go through this
Mm-hmm.
tough paths differently in our own ways.
Definitely.
When you are doing these races, going through, what one race has been the most memorable one, and why?
If we're talking about just marathons specifically, I would say Chicago. And the why behind that is because, like, I have several reasons. So, number one, I was supposed to run Chicago during 2020, the COVID year, when it didn't happen. So I got in, the first time I applied for the lottery, and I got accepted, and then COVID shut the world down. So, okay, I'll get the refund. They offered, different things like deferral or whatever, but I took the refund because who knew what life would be like a year later. So then I think it was 2022. That was my second time entering the lottery ever for Chicago. I got accepted again. And I was like, what? What are the odds of that? Like, I know people that have tried 7 or 10 years, like, to get in, just year after year rejection. I'm like, okay, so I think I should do it. Like, yes, this is happening. But then that's the year that I got the back injury where I could hardly walk or run or anything. So I had to do physical therapy. I actually got injured in August of that summer, and the race is in October. So even before I started physical therapy, I knew I couldn't run. I was like, that's not going to happen. I can't even pick up my foot. So I had to defer. So actually that was 2023. I take that back because I deferred it 1 year to 2024. I told myself, this is it. Like, the third time is the charm. If I don't run this race on the third attempt, then I'm not ever doing it because it's just too many attempts, right? Like, there's just too many things. So I did it, and it was a phenomenal experience. I mean, I went through all the emotions of, like, the excitement, the stress to get to the start line, and then the excitement, and then taking all the sights and the sounds in, and the pain that sets in, of course, after the 30K mark, like you were talking about, and just all the things. But it was so memorable because it was such a challenge for me to get there and to make it happen. And the crowds were incredible. I know it's a world major, but that's not even why I entered it. I entered it because my friends wanted to do it, and they didn't get in that year, so I did. But it was just one of those things. It was just one of those experiences that was incredible. Like, the crowd was like it was like a block party for 26.2 miles.
Yep.
There was never a stretch of road that was quiet or boring or lonely. It was just so exciting, and just to see the communities really come out and celebrate everyone that day. And the other really important reason is that my boyfriend got to do it with me. Now, he qualified to register, so he did not have to do a lottery. He actually qualified for the race at Boston in 2024. So, and he qualified for Boston. So he's really fast, and we don't run together. But it was just really nice to have that experience to share with him, like take in the city afterwards and, make a trip out of it. So it was probably my favorite race ever. But it was hard. Doesn't mean it was easy, but it was so much fun. And I probably run literally twice as slow as he does. So I was right at a 5-hour finish. It was not my fastest, but not my slowest. But the experience itself was priceless. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I think that what makes it nice is the way, like, despite everything, you were able to conquer it. So that's nice to hear. I think those are the races where you kind of go through the emotions from the start to end, is like where you make most memories. And I do get that block party because that's how it is in Berlin too. Like every block is wild. So I think that's one of the beauty of the major is all the city gets together to celebrate. So I think that's why its experience is so much nicer in the major races than the normal ones.
Yes, and I don't know. I don't know if I can run another full after that. That's not that exciting, right? Like I haven't. That was just October, so I haven't run another full yet. But I'm like, what happens if I go to one and it's quiet and there's nobody cheering me? That's going to be a completely different experience now.
I know that feeling though because I did a Freiburg marathon in April, so last year. So it was like a two loop, right? So first loop, it was the best marathon kind of experience where everybody was there because it is mostly a half marathon race. So first loop, so everybody was cheering, the whole city got together, but like everybody left after the first loop. So when we were going through the second loop, then all the crowd that was there before, it was gone, and it was so boring after that. It was like, oh my god, the experience from wow, such a nice atmosphere went to like, oh my god, this is awful. And then the heat was so bad, everybody was walking, and that made it like worse. So I know now, I just remember like what you said, like if I do another marathon, so I will always compare it to the Berlin marathon and like how people are crowded. So it will not be nice.
Right? Like,
Yes.
how do you do that?
I don't know. Yeah, that's when it have to pick something really nice. The next one, I have a half in 6, and I signed up for it last year. And when I signed it for it, I wanted to do a PR because Manchester Marathon was like 28 days later, so it was like a perfect time to run fast. So, but now I don't know if I can even do a PR on it.
At least you can show up and run and see what you've got, and I think a full marathon would be a really big stretch right now. That would probably set you up for injury. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's I'm scared. I'm just gonna probably take it easy because I need to aim for bigger than just do this right now. It sucks
That's
though.
the hard thing, trying to think long term. Like we want to do all of these things, but also I don't know about you. I think yes for you. Like I know I want to run for the long term. I don't want to end up like, oh, you can't run anymore because you ran too fast or ran too many miles and you got this injury and now you can never run again. That would be terrible. I would rather stay in it for the long term,
Yeah, I know what you mean. When I sign up for a race, then I usually want to run faster because I can run without paying if I want to run slow. So there are a lot of trails here which I can do. When I initially thought that, oh God, I can do PR, but it's just sad that it's not going to come true.
It'll come true. It will.
Yeah, next time. At least I'm grateful
There's
though.
always next time.
Yeah, but I'm grateful that I ran. Now I can run again, and I can go and run 17 kilometer without like having issues or anything. So I'm like blessed on that part. Like a lot of people probably cannot do this, so I'm happy that I can do this and just get up and then just go and run. It is beautiful thing that you can do to be just running.
Absolutely.
Like we have discussed about races and training, and like every run, every week, like whatever we do, it sometimes it's tough, So, like you said, you have to work, you have other commitment, and sometimes there is burnt out of working out, getting all those fatigued and chronic fatigue. So, how do you motivate to train and to race when everything is like the whole life takes over and everything gets tough?
I just remind myself that, and I think about this often, like when it is that early morning at 5 a.m. and I don't want to get out of bed and I could sleep another hour or so, hour and a half. If you are not training, your competition is out there training. If I sleep in and I decide to take a lazy day, the person that is beating me is probably not taking that time away, They're out there grinding, they're doing their workout. So I have no excuse. I will be mad at myself if I don't follow through with it.
I like that actually.
Well, I mean, it's like, I don't know about you, but in races, like somebody will beat me by 20 seconds or something, and I find out they're in my age group or whatever. And I'm like what? 20 seconds? That could be because I slept in and I skipped that one day, or I don't know, there could be so many things, but I'm like, that person probably didn't skip those workouts, they probably were up and they were training and they were devoted. And so I've learned the hard way, like that's, you have to show up.
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes, but yeah, if I'm not doing it, my competition is doing it. So I better get up and do it too.
True. And it shows up the more you do those long runs, each training will pay off on the race day. It will show off that you trained and you did well. So now we can talk about something that went bad in a race. so have you have you ever had a race where things were completely falling apart, and at that moment how did you recover from it?
Yes, I have a recent situation like that it really truly fell apart. There was a half marathon that I ran in December. It was a challenge. There was a 5K on Saturday and the half marathon on Sunday. Saturday was great. I showed up. I had a great day. I didn't push too hard because I knew that I was running the half the next day. So it was like kind of an easy shakeout run. Pace was good. The weather was great. Like, okay, I'm feeling good. The next day was a completely different story. I started to feel some discomfort in my calf, like around mile 3, and I thought, that's weird. I was like, wow, I don't really know what this feeling is. Like, I don't usually feel a pain in my calf like this, but okay. So I kept running, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse. Like mile 8, I was almost unable to run. By mile 10, I was walking. I actually had to walk in the last 5K of that half marathon. So I cried. I cried on the course. I was very frustrated with what was happening, and I had too much pride to just stop, but I think I should have because I probably did more damage continuing to walk on it. Anyway, I'm not sure what happened. I think I had like a bruise in the muscle. I was using the massage gun the night before, probably a little too much pressure. The calf, so it was really uncomfortable. I had to take some time away from running. I ended up taking a whole month off. I focused a lot on swimming and lifting and the things that I could do comfortably, and it was just the worst race experience that I've ever had. I've never DNF'd a race, so that was part of I was like, you're not going to DNF, you're not going to DNF. I just kept telling myself that. Like, you can finish this race. You can do hard things. But, when other walkers are passing you at the end and you're like, what? These people have walked basically the whole race and they're walking faster. I can barely even move. It was definitely a fall apart moment. It was a rough day. So from December 22nd until January 19th, I did not run one time.
I know that feeling. I know. I'm also very proud like you. When I had a stress fracture, I ran, and maybe my leg was swollen. I was too stubborn to stop and recognize that I needed to go to a doctor. So yeah, I know that feeling that you talked about, where like, I'm not gonna DNF. I'm just gonna finish it, even though think it logically, then you should go to a doctor, but you are just too pride to just stop and think like, okay, I think it's time to stop. So yeah, I know that feeling completely.
Yeah, like a DNF is forever. I don't want that on my name, right? Like, I'm not going to DNF, but then I think back and I'm like, well, that was the worst half marathon time ever that is recorded under my name, and that is going to stay forever. And it would have been a lot better, both like physically and mentally, for me to just say, I need to stop. And I just, the pride, the ego, it's so hard.
I know. I do the same way, which is bad because I also want
Yes.
to, even though it's hurting, it's logically good, perfectly good reason for DNF, and it's just like the ego is there to saying nope, nope, I'm just gonna run, even though I have to walk and run. So
It's a bad quality, right?
yes, it is.
What's wrong? I think most runners are that way, right? Like, what's wrong with us? Why do we do this to ourselves?
It is. I think it is one of the worst trait probably in a runner is when you should stop and go to a doctor, you would not go until it is much worse, until you cannot no longer walk. Okay, so now we will swiftly switch to your gears and tech. I know you wear Garmin, but what is your go-to race day shoes that you wear?
Oh, I have a favorite. It's the New Balance Rebel, but the version 3, which they don't make anymore. So I did panic purchase like 6 pairs of them. I have a lot of them in a lot of fun colors. I do train in them too, but I rotate shoes a lot just to help with the breakdown of the foam and everything in them and the materials. But I love those shoes. They're fast. And they're just fun colors, so you can find them to match like any outfit that you're wearing for the race, and they just feel good.
Did you just buy 6 in one time?
No, like I spread it out like every couple weeks, like every payday I had. I was like, oh, I found another pair on Amazon, or I found a pair at Running Warehouse, or just different. I even tried to get a pair on eBay, but that did not work out. They were. I don't remember what happened, but the order was canceled or something. Probably someone else beat me to it.
When we're on this shoe topic, how does this shoe impact your marathon? Does it make any difference? Because I know a lot of people wear these carbon plated shoes, like a lot of us use the normal shoes. Or do you have seen any difference between your shoes and if you have wore different type of shoes in different races?
I do think the ones that I wear, I don't know if they really make me faster. They make me feel like I'm faster, but I do think there's a little edge. I don't have any of those carbon plated like super shoes that some people use. I mean, I think the really fast people benefit from that. The people that are like sub 3, they tend to benefit from those, I think, more than an average person in the mid pack or, wherever we land. But I do think, I don't know if it's like placebo effect. Does it make me think I'm moving faster? I don't know. I do think it does though.
Are there any apps or gadget that you swear by for training? What do you use? I know you use Garmin, but do you use any gadgets or apps?
Yeah, so I do use Garmin for sure. I love my Garmin watch. I'm on my 3rd one, and I can't imagine trying any other brand. I just love all the data that it gives. I'm kind of a data nerd, so I like all the statistics and, the heart rate and the different oscillation that you have, the vertical oscillation, the stride length, all of those things. So I love that. I do enjoy Strava. I really like seeing where other people run. I like when they share their pictures and things like that. I like Map My Run. I still do that one just because of the You versus the Year challenge where we met all those years ago. I feel like that one's not as interactive, so it's just kind of cool to see like people share a photo of their run, and I like that. I like that kind of stuff. But yeah, other than my Garmin, I think like if I'm going to go for a run, as long as I have my Garmin, I'm good. And then the apps are just the icing on the cake. So.
Do you use any heart rate strap or just like a wrist monitor for the Garmin?
So mine has it built into the wrist. I used to have the heart rate strap on my old one, but I don't really like wearing it. It's I think they stretch out over time, and so they kind of like chafe a little bit, and that's kind of uncomfortable. So for me, I don't use that. I know some people use like the arm band for the heart rate, and that works really well. I think it's Koros, I believe.
Well, she was talking about it that people had good reviews for the. Yeah, I've not used it. I just like my heart rate monitor. I trust it more than my wrist one because I don't know, for some reason whenever I use my wrist, then it usually shows the heart rate is way off. So I don't know what is wrong with it.
Yeah, I think it is more accurate. The chest strap monitor is a lot better than the wrist from what I've read about. But I don't know. I also don't like to have to remember, like I have one for swimming because the Garmin watch I have doesn't measure your heart rate on your wrist when you swim. You have to put a chest strap, and I forget it sometimes. I'll forget to put it in my gym bag, or I'll get there and it's in the bag, but now I'm already dressed in my suit to swim, and then I have to change clothes. So it's just like a hassle. I'm lazy like that, I guess. Yeah.
I know what you mean. I do also sometimes. If I miss, then okay, fine. I just don't care. I'm not going to pay notice to my heart rate. So
I mean, I tried heart rate training, and for me, I didn't really have success with the heart rate training. I do zone 2 runs, based on heart rate, but I don't strictly train on heart rate. I just feel like, especially I think because of living in Florida, it's so hot and humid that the heart rate's always higher than it should be.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can change that here.
No, I started switching it from heart rate to power zone because power zone would remain same regardless it is summer, winter. It just shows that how much power I am using. So if I'm going uphill, then it's usually more power, and if I'm just using a normal surface, then it's usually the less power. So I don't know yet. I'll have to know when I do another marathon and see how it works.
Yeah, so I've kind of started doing that a little bit myself. Mine's built into my watch, though. Do you have an actual power meter that you use on your shoe or anything?
No, mine come from the watch too.
Okay. From what I hear, it's pretty accurate. So, yeah, maybe I'll experiment with that a little bit more. Now you've inspired me to try.
I usually, when I'm running my long run, so I try to stay in zone 1 and zone 2. So it kind of matches when you are running because it shows if I'm not trying, then the average power zones are usually really, really low. So you should definitely give it a try because from what I read, it is much more reliable than the heart rate ones.
Thanks for telling me about that. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm going to try it.
I had it on my watch for a long time, but now I'm really more into it and just trying to base all of my training based on the training power zone. Let me know how it goes, and we can talk about it next time.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so do you have a dream marathon or any race that you haven't run yet that you want to do?
I have so many races that I want to do, but yes, there's like that one that, it's always like screaming at me, like, do this. However, so it's in North Carolina, and this past year, that's where all of the hurricane damage occurred, like up with the flooding, and a lot of storm damage occurred even up as far into the mountain. So it's in North Carolina. It's the Black Mountain Marathon at Mount Mitchell, which has just always fascinated me. I don't know if you've ever been to North Carolina or to any of the mountain ranges over there, but I've hiked that mountain with my son, and we had such a great time. They have a lookout point that you can go to, so you can either drive up or you can hike up, or it's just so beautiful up there and just peaceful. But because of the damage, they actually closed. It's on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and they had to close the road. Some of the roads were washed out from all of the flooding and stuff that happened. So this year they canceled it. But it's definitely something that I hope will come back. I think it's been around for like 25 or more years, so it's been around a long time. I think they'll rebuild and be able to bring it back. But I think it's challenging. It's not only beautiful, but it's, of course, a lot of elevation. So being here in flat Florida, that is definitely something that would be a dream to be fit enough to finish that race. And then to add on to that, they have previously they did like a challenge. So you ran the marathon, but if the conditions were good and there wasn't snow or anything at the top, they give you like an option to summit the mountain if you meet a time. And I don't know what the time is off the top of my head, but if you're on the marathon course, you're like halfway or whatever. If you're on pace to do so, then you're allowed to go up and do the summit, come back down, and then finish the other half of the marathon. And I just think that would be so amazing. Super cool.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. I've been to North Carolina, and I think I did one of the hikes there. It was high elevation. I think it was 5 mile up and 5 mile down. Something laws or something. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, North Carolina is beautiful with all the mountains, and that's gonna be high elevation. I think the race you're talking about.
Yeah, it's on the Appalachian Trail. So yes, it is. It's in those mountain ranges. But it's beautiful. It's worth it.
Yeah, I think you have
to find a stair stepper, stair mill, some Sugarloaf Mountain, we call it here, running. Like I've got a lot of things I need to do to get there.
Oh, you have to do Clay Loop. I think Clay Loop is the only one
Yeah.
that has a little bit of elevation, right? Because that's the only place I knew in Florida. I think we ran there a couple of times around the Clay Loop.
Mm-hmm. So there's a place, and that's been paved now. Actually, it's very different than it used to be. They still have some of it as clay, so there is still a runnable section, but a lot of it is now, like half of it is paved. So that was sad to see that in the community change. I understand growth and development, but that was like an icon of the area.
Yeah.
But so there's another hill called Sugarloaf. We joke it's called Sugarloaf Mountain because it's Florida. There are no mountains, but
yeah.
it's a really big hill. Yeah, it's a little bit steeper than the clay road, but instead of those, remember it was like 3 on the clay that were like 1 hill, 2 hill, 3 hill.
Yeah.
It's just like one steady hill. And I was training a couple years back for an ultra race in Georgia, and I trained out there, and that got me in really good shape. So I think I'll have to do that again if I want to do Mount Mitchell, because there's no elevation where I live. It's like some of my runs, it'll say like, today's run had a 30-foot gain. I'm like, 30 feet, really? Like, that is nothing.
Yeah, good luck with that trail, because you will need, if you're running that high elevation, you need to find something steeper to train to that marathon. But that sounds really good. If you could summit it, then I think that would be icing on the cake, that to go all the way to the top.
It would be just like so memorable, just a once in a lifetime kind of thing. I felt like that's yeah. I really like mountains and scenery like that, and trees, and yeah. So maybe we'll see.
Yeah,
Forward progress.
So now let's say you are here right now, right, at this particular moment, after doing countless marathons. Now you go back to that very first marathon that you did at the Disney. Like, what would be that one advice that would give to Elena?
Don't skip the long runs. Don't shortcut the work. Right? Like, take it serious. That's my main thing. Like, just get the plan and stick to it, and don't think that you don't need the long runs and that you're smarter than the plan. No, you're not. Like, everybody has to go through it. You can't just show up and blow up, basically.
True. Yeah. Some people do that though. My brother.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I've seen it. Like, the little Instagram reels and stories and stuff where people are like, I'm just running this marathon today and I didn't train. I'm like, how? Because that is not normal.
No.
Most people that don't train are really, really uncomfortable. It's not a good day.
No, yeah. Some people, I think it just, when you're young, then it's easier.
Yes. Yes. So like if you're like 22, 23 maybe, or younger, you can get away with that. But anyone over 25, I don't think so.
No. It's definitely harder. So what's next in your running journey?
Yeah. So I have a race coming up in April, the 7-mile bridge run in Isla Mirada, which is in the Florida Keys. So that's super exciting. It's 7 miles, but it's actually 6.8 miles. You run over a bridge there that has just beautiful, breathtaking view, water on both sides, all around. Yeah, I did it 2 years ago, and so my goal this year is to go back and do it again with my family and to be faster this year than I was then. And I do want to work on like shorter distances and picking up some speed, because training for the longer distances for me does slow me down a little bit. I've been kind of working on some speed training recently, and I have a sprint triathlon next weekend, and then we'll see if there's any fall marathon or not, depending on the outcome of the New York lottery. So that is up in the air. I think Tuesday, the 5th, is when they release the lottery results. So we'll see.
Good luck for that. I hope you can get and run the New York Marathon in November.
Thank you. That would be really exciting. That's one, I've always seen since I was younger, and I've watched it on TV so many years, and now I've met so many people that have done it. I know it's a big course, and it's kind of hard course, and there's so many people that it's like congested. There's a lot of I hear a lot of negatives to it, but I still think that it would be a really cool experience running over I don't know how to say it, the Verano Bridge or something like that. Running through all the boroughs of New York. It just looks really exciting. So I hope so. I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the toughest races too. So I think that would be amazing to run in New York with everybody coming in too. I think the atmosphere would be electric. It sounds exciting.
Yes, yes.
Funniest thing and weirdest thing that you have seen in a race?
Yeah, like I always think that seeing people in costumes are really funny because I don't run in costumes. I think I would get overheated and be annoyed with it, after the miles start adding up. But I see so many fun costumes and I've seen people dressed as pizza running, bananas running.
Yeah.
There was a guy dressed like a hot dog running. like those are, those are pretty funny. They're entertaining. Sometimes can be a little weird, but it's fun.
Yes.
So yeah.
I don't know how
Yeah.
they do it. It's for me. It looks really hot. I think I would be really hot and bothered with those.
Yeah, for sure. But it looks fun.
Yeah, it looks fun and good for them because it's hard. It looks harder to run in a costume because you have to carry that weight too. So kudos to
Yeah,
them.
I guess I did run in costume one time. I did once, but it was just more like face makeup. Like it was like face paint and like a headband and stuff. It was for a local Halloween race that we did over in the west side of Orlando. So it wasn't any long distance. It was like a 5K fun run. And it was in the evening, so it wasn't too hot, but it was definitely not a full heavy costume,
Yeah.
and shout out to the firemen that wear their gear.
Gear,
When
yeah.
I see the
Oh,
guys
yeah.
that run in there, oh my gosh, that's badass. That's tough. And that makes a statement or someone carrying the American flag, for example, that is hard work. So
It is.
that's kudos to them.
Yeah, it is. And also the
I-
policemen with the uniform too. They run with their police boots. So some of them do that too.
yeah.
I don't know how they do it. It's a challenge and makes us look nothing.
Right, I'm just a lazy runner. I just show up lazy. I don't want to carry anything.
Yeah.
Carrying my phone is enough.
And sometimes that too hurts. So if you could run any marathon in a fictional or historical character, who would that be?
Oh my gosh, that's a really hard question.
Yeah, it could be anything. Wonder Woman. I know a lot of people would love to.
I don't want to steal your answer, but I feel like I like that answer. I dressed up as Wonder Woman as her for Halloween a couple years, and that was pretty fun. I really liked the movie, and yeah, I think I'm gonna have to steal that answer because she's a hero, right? And
Yeah,
that would be really cool.
and it is one of the popular characters and iconic character, as a and that's why I was like, maybe you want to do that. So I was not trying to give you that answer, but I was just bringing up an example because that is what I've seen so many people do with the Wonder Woman. So I was like,
Yeah, well, it's funny. I have the costume too, and not that I would run in it, but I've had some of my friends. They actually have coined that nickname for me, like, "Oh, Wonder Woman." They think they think I do so much, and I don't see it that way. I don't know. I just do the thing I love to do, and that's running and swimming and biking and lifting, and it just keeps my balance, I guess, with work and life stress and everything, like I said before. And I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem like anything worthy of being called Wonder Woman. But I guess for people that don't have that lifestyle, maybe it is extraordinary for them to see that. But I don't know. I think that's just who I am. Not that I'm Wonder Woman. I don't mean that, but that's just the active lifestyle that I enjoy.
but you do though. I know I've known you for such a long time, and then I've seen too, and then taking care of the kids, and then working, and then running, and like I said, when I first met you, and then I was like, you said, "Oh, I do." You were doing marathon, and I was like, "Oh my God, she's a badass." So yeah, yeah. The nickname sounds good
Well,
actually.
thank you.
Yeah, nickname matches you. So
So that's it. Wonder Woman. That's going to be my fictional character. I
I'm
like
gonna
that.
write it on the podcast. Elena / Wonder Woman.
Absolutely. Here we go.
Okay, so I think there is one final question left for today's episode. So, what's the best post marathon meal or drink you ever had?
Oh, okay. This is going to sound like so cliche of an answer, but it's pizza. I love pizza. And after I run a lot of miles, I feel like I've earned that after a marathon. I can eat as much pizza as I want. Now, I do have to eat gluten-free now. I did not used to, but I have some autoimmune issues, so I have to stick to gluten-free. But you know what? it's so good. Like, just give me an entire pizza. And so when we were in Chicago, there was a gluten-free pizza restaurant that I got a pizza from, and I ate the entire thing. I mean, it wasn't huge. It was like equivalent to like a medium-sized pizza, but I ate it all. Like, it's just amazing.
It is pizza.
The best.
Yeah, pizza and drink beer is good.
Yes.
Or margarita sounds good too.
Pepperoni. It has to
Yeah.
be pepperoni pizza. That's my go-to. It can't just be cheese. It has to have pepperoni on it too.
That sounds good. I mean, yes, definitely pizza is probably the famous thing that you want to eat after all those 42 kilometers of crying and sweating and coursing.
Yes. It's not really that McDonald's cheeseburger. It's actually pizza.
All right. I mean,
I'm so glad I waited for it.
and this was fun. I think I liked it. It's been a while that I talked to you, and then thank you for coming and then sharing this awesome experience like with everybody else because I knew about you, but then I learned few things that I missed over the last few years. So yeah, thank you for coming here and then sharing your story. It was a pleasure having you and talking to you today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. It was great catching up with you, and absolutely, if I can inspire somebody out there, that makes me happy. So hopefully
yeah.
someone listening will feel inspired to run a marathon, right? And suffer
Yes.
like us. It's awesome.
It is awesome. I was definitely when I started running. I only met you a few times, and then when you said you were already finishing marathon, I was like, oh my god! Like I never thought I would ever run a marathon when I started running. So yeah, thank you for being like one of the inspiration when I started running because I was like you were one of the people that I looked up when I started running. So yeah, thank you for awesome memories because we did run so many times and had fun. So yeah, it's been really nice having you.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. It really does. Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on the podcast.
And thank you for listening to this episode of our podcast. And I hope you really liked it. And see you again next time. And until then, bye bye.